What could I say? But of course I made that vow right then and there that I would keep those 6 years of silence and I would sew those shirts. And with those promises made, my brothers once again transformed into swans and took flight. I immediately fled that house for fear of the thieves coming and finding me there. And I ran into the woods, and I ran day and night until eventually I came to an oak tree and slept in its limbs. The next morning I rose and I began my mission of gathering star flowers. I carried them to that oak tree, and there I sat and sewed those shirts. Day and night, until finally the hunters arrived.
What could we say? I had hunted for the king many years in that forest, and never had I seen anything so passing strange as this. There, in an oak tree, was a beautiful young woman sewing. I demanded she come down and explain herself. She threw down her necklace, thinking we were thieves, I guess, and then she threw down her girdle and her garters, and then her beautiful silk dress, and so I sent my men up to bring her down. And this young woman, clad only in a modest shift, spoke not a word to any of us.
What could I say? I dare not speak, and destined my brothers to be swans forever. But those hunters carried me to their king, their young and handsome king, and for the first time I found that vow hard to keep.
What could I say? My hunters brought me a true prize from the forest, a beautiful woman. She seemed determined to sew shirts out of starflowers, so I gave her space and shelter and food. Her devotion to her task warmed my heart. I fell in love with her, and I asked for her hand in marriage. She nodded her agreement, and so we were wed, silently. Much to the chagrin of my mother.
What could I say? My son had married a woman who was as mute as a stone. She was unsuitable as a queen, and I had to be rid of her. But she gave me an opportunity. A year later, she gave birth to a child. That night, I snuck into her room, stole the child away, and then smeared blood upon her lips. The next morning, I went to my son and said, "You have to get rid of her. She is a cannibal."
What could I say? I knew my wife was no cannibal, but still, my mother insisted.
What could I say? I simply waited until she gave birth to another child, and that child I also stole away. Once again, I smeared blood on her lips and insisted to my son, "You have to be rid of her. She is evil."
What could I say? I knew my wife could do no such thing, but my mother persisted in her accusations.
What could I say? Finally, that woman gave birth to a third child, and I stole that one too. Once again, smeared blood on her lips, and then told my son, "You have to take her before the court. She has killed all 3 of your children."
What could I say? 3 children gone missing? I turned it over to the courts, and then, to my horror, they sentenced her to death by burning at the stake.
What could I say? I dare not defend myself and doom my brothers. But the day of my execution was also the last day of the 6 years. So when the executioner came to take me to the pyre, I picked up those 6 starflower shirts I had been sewing, finished save for the last sleeve on the left shirt, and I carried them with me. As we stood before the pile of wood, the executioner ready to begin, there suddenly came a rush of wind and a flap of wings, and Swans came down from the sky and landed in front of me. One by one, I threw those shirts of star flowers over their heads, and one by one, they transformed back into my brothers. Save my youngest brother, who for the rest of his life, instead of a left arm, had a swan's wing. And then I turned to my husband.
What could I say? I was literally speechless. My wife had transformed swans into fine young men. And then she turned and for the first time found her voice and spoke to me.
What could I say but declare my innocence of everything his mother had accused me of? And then to our delight, the servant who had been ordered to hide our children from us brought them out to my husband to prove to him that the words I had spoken were the truth.
What could I say? My wife's brothers restored, my children restored, my dear wife's voice restored. So I turned to my mother and said, justice demands that you should meet the same fate that you had planned for my dear wife.
And the people of our kingdom from that day forward lived in peace, happiness, and harmony, all with voices that were welcome.